Welcome to episode 1217 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
Buenos dias. Doing well, despite the sloppy weather day. UCF went 3-0, so that's nice. Rays did not pull off the sweep, so that's not nice. I was glad to be distracted by football yesterday because I saw the early performance of that baseball game, and I was like, glad I didn't cancel all my other plans to stay home and watch that game. Because Thursday and Friday, amazing games. Especially if you're a Rays fan on Friday night, but Thursday night was a great game. And then yesterday, kind of anticlimactic. So going for the sweep, not sweep, but the series win today. But the Orioles have the tiebreaker. It's kind of weird saying the Orioles beat the Rays in a season series. It's been like since 2014 or 15 that that's happened. Stupid ballpark change. Took away all the mojo.
Careful, because you talk like that any longer and you might get fired by the Orioles owner.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I don't want to lose any potential employment opportunities. So yeah, whoops. All right, I'm leaving. Yeah, I'm. The rest of you guys can finish the podcast. I've said too much. All right.
Well, joining us today is Tyler London of Backpick Fantasy Baseball. Tyler, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great on this Sunday out in Southern California. A little gloomy weather, but I always like that. Last night, watched Arizona Cubs with my son. He's 6 years old, and it was that extra inning game. So it's just like super awesome to hear him asking all the questions and stuff like that. And, throwing the ball up in the air, like with his toy bat and ball after the game, hitting it around the house, all stoked and everything. And my Buffaloes won last night. So stayed up, watched that game, triple OT. So that has me excited. And, I have a couple of semifinals, head-to-head matchups today that are going to conclude, and they're looking good in first place in those. So looking to secure a couple finals matchups and some money leagues. So, just excited for the day.
I've got my only head-to-head league is the Sleeper and the Bust listener league, and I am in the semifinals. It is tied, or I think it's tied 5-5 right now in categories, heading into the last day against Luke, who's the number one seed. I backdoored my way into the playoffs, and I'm trying to pull off the upset. So good luck to Luke. I hope I beat you, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in that matchup. Good luck to everybody in their matchups this week in head-to-head leagues, or if you're trying to chase down championships in roto leagues. I know I'm trying to chase down a few of those as well. So we're going to talk.
Bud's trying to do the same thing. My AL Labor League got up to 7, is now down to 2.5 because a couple categories are really tight, and so I am really sweating it out against Jesse Roach from the There Is No Offseason podcast, Baseball Perspectives. Yeah, trying to hold on.
We're going to do our best to try to help everybody. Some bad news to start off the podcast, though. Shohei Ohtani done for the season. This was really frustrating. If you had Ohtani on any of your rosters, obviously using him as a hitter. I know my TGFBI team, everybody on the podcast had a little bit of Ohtani somewhere. He had not played since September 3rd, yet they kept him active in the hopes that he was going to play, and he was in the lineup a few times and was scratched. This was really, really weird. All of a sudden, he went into the locker room, cleared out his locker, and then there were videos of him the next day in Japan. Clearly the end of Ohtani for this season. However, my question to you guys, I'll start with you, Tyler. Where would you be willing to draft Ohtani as a hitter only, obviously, because he won't be pitching next year?
Yeah, it depends. I think if his agent mentioned that he expects him back for, the beginning of the year, but, we know that's just speak as of now. We have to see, where that surgery takes him in the timeline. I know Bryce Harper missed some time, and I thought Bryce was a really good value in certain types of drafts if he was falling into the, 120s and stuff like that, but we're not going to get that type of discount on Ohtani, someone who's a perennial, first round pick, especially with the starting pitcher designation, but now that's gone. So I think you really have to look at where you assess him as a hitter, but also the risk that implies that he might not be there the whole time. So it's hard to say, that I'd take him in the first round, over someone like a J-Rod or a Kyle Tucker or something like that. I'm someone that if someone's going to miss some time, for sure, I'm probably going to want to fade in the first and second round. But I think if I saw Ohtani sitting there in the mid-second round or something like that, I'd think about it, but my gut would be, to kind of avoid someone missing time. But if he's locked in before the season saying, hey, he's going to be in there in April, as a hitter, I do have him as, a top 5 player, with that 5 cat upside. So all depends on, I guess the reports and the clarity that we get moving forward, in my opinion.
Jason, where are you at on Ohtani heading into next season?
So I was looking at timeline, with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper missed it took 160 days between his surgery, which was on November 30th or 23rd, and then his debut on May 2nd. And we've said it so many times in this podcast, because a guy comes back at a certain date doesn't mean that guy is quote unquote back. I mean, he's back physically, but he's not back to 100% of the performance that we're used to seeing from that particular guy. And if you think back to Bryce Harper, it took a while for the power to show up with him. Like, he was still hitting for average. He was still accepting his walks, but the power wasn't there. And it took a while for that to come into play. So there is a decent chance, like if Ohtani has, now that he's shut it down, he's in Japan, maybe he has the surgery now. And that puts him, again, that's 2 months earlier than if he were to have it this week. That's 2 months earlier than Bryce Harper had it. Harper missed 1 month of the season. So that would put an outside chance of Ohtani coming back in spring training, enough time to get started with that. That said, if you're envisioning a full season of Ohtani, let's discount the first month. If it happens to Harper, you got some of that's going to have to happen to Ohtani. I don't care what kind of unicorn he is. Let's discount the first bit of a month. I cannot take him in the first round. I don't know if I could even take him in the second round. I need more of and I took him in the first round of 2 different draft champions this year as my 8th overall pick. And I'm going to win one of them. And I am going to, I have an outside shot of winning the other one. He's been a huge part of it. But if I don't win the other one, he's a part of that as well, because I haven't been able to use him this month. That and the Mickey Moniak situation, almost the same thing, except they put Moniak on the IL finally with that. So, I don't know if I can take him in the first 2 rounds, but I have to just remind everybody again that just because a guy's back doesn't mean he is back. He is physically back, but it takes time, and put a pin in that thought, because I'm going to apply that same thing to somebody else we're going to talk about on this podcast today.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical of what Ohtani is going to be early on in the season. And I think we want to be careful about using the Bryce Harper as a comp, right? Because Harper came back way quicker than anybody thought he was going to. I mean, the original reports were going to be like, mid to late June, and Harper came back much sooner than that. So I don't want to say like, oh, for sure we know that Ohtani is going to be back at the start of the season, even if he gets the surgery this week. So I think I'm likely going to be out on Ohtani at the price. My guess is, like Tyler said, it'll probably be a first-round pick, and I just hate spending a first-round pick on a guy that has some sort of injury issue. And so, I'm probably going to be out on Ohtani, but I definitely want to wait to see what the news says as we start getting closer to drafts. But like, if you're a sicko like me and you like to draft in October, he will not be on any of my October teams. That is for darn sure. All right.
I'm drafting in November. Like I said, I have XFL in November. That's my first draft.
Triston Casas done for the year as well. What are your thoughts on Casas for next season there, Jason?
He made quite a step forward. I mean, if you look at how he started the season, wasn't well, but the second, he's looked excellent in the second half. Just looking like the guy that we were hoping he would be all season. It took a while for that guy to show up. But I was impressed watching what he's done here throughout the summer. And my expectations are, where I want to put him for, say November drafting, although I had him in XFL and I traded him as I'm trying to hold on to this to win that league, although Ian Kahn and Steve Gardner are pretty much in the driver's seat now. But Casas is one of the guys I traded early on to try to position that team for that. So it's going to hurt watching him perform well for another team, but I'm more optimistic on Casas now than I was even, like, say, 4 months ago.
What about you, Tyler? Are you interested in Casas for next year?
Yeah, Triston Casas has been one of my favorite players this season to pick up on. I think there was that dip early in the year where he came up, even as a highly regarded prospect, was sitting against some lefties, not putting it all together. And I think, that's normal for people that come up adjusting to the MLB. And then he really hit his stride. His stat cast is super red. And I really think he has that, 25 home run, 80 RBI, 80 run profile with even maybe more 30 home runs in his profile too. And he's sort of that second year guy that I think you can get in a draft that can probably lock in a top 80 value next year. So yeah, I'm really in on Triston Casas. And, he's someone where, like Strand was getting a lot of hype when Casas wasn't playing as well, but I always thought Casas was the guy for, first baseman rookie this year, or one of the top ones. So I'm really excited about him, especially hitting in Fenway, especially with them starting him against more lefties.
Yeah, this is interesting because I thought I was going to be more in on Casas. Like he showed some really interesting skill changes in terms of making contact in the zone kind of earlier on the year and was getting unlucky when doing them. And then the luck started to turn around. He started to play really well. And then the skills just kind of evaporated in the second half. I mean, we're talking about a guy that dropped all the way down to 78% zone contact. And for context, like 85 is around league averages. 78 is atrocious. That is a guy who is swinging and missing way too much and not making contact in the zone. So I'm a little bit skeptical now that Casas made an actual change earlier on in the year that he's actually going to be able to stick with. I think that may have been an aberration. So while I mean, he's going to be a nice source of power, and I don't think he's going to be extremely expensive, I don't think he is ready to make that next big jump. And so he may be a guy that ends up on a few of my teams when he really falls in a draft. But other than that, like he's not going to be a major target for me, I don't think, heading into 2024, which is, like I said, surprised me because we I think Paul and I talked about him in like June, and I was like, I'm really excited about what Triston Casas can do for the second half. And then he really kind of disappointed me kind of with the lack of skills growth or holding on to the skills growth that he kind of showed earlier on in the season. So we'll have to revisit that one in the off season for sure. Let's jump into FAAB. There are some interesting FAAB guys. A lot of the pitchers are 2-start guys or just have a really good start. At this point, you should be playing matchups, right? Like, obviously, you're going to start your studs, but the guys other than your studs, you should be playing the matchups with. And some of these guys have some interesting matchups. Let's start with Marcus Stroman, who's coming off the IL. He's going to get a 2-start week against Pittsburgh and Colorado, both of them at home in Chicago. Tyler, are you interested in picking up Marcus Stroman?
Depends on league size. I think if I was in, a 12-team league and I needed an arm, to make up some roto categories, wins, Ks, and stuff like that. But I've always viewed Stroman as sort of someone when he's pitching well is sort of like a, middle class, little upper middle class asset, and that the upside per Ks per game really isn't going to be there. He had a couple of those seasons with, good whip, good ERA, but never like huge win seasons. I think he's like a stable arm, like he has a semi-safe floor. He's someone that's been in the game for a while, and I think you can trust when he's ramped up. But he's not someone that I typically run to specifically because of his K rate over his career.
Jason, where are you at on Stroman?
On paper, this is ideal, but Stroman threw 1 inning of relief in his first inning. So I don't know what he's going to, if this is a 2-start week, but will he make enough? Will he pitch enough to get to 2 starts, or are they going to go 6-man rotation? They haven't said, unless I missed something, the Cubs haven't said if they're going 6-man rotation or if they're going to tandem Javier Assad with Stroman as he comes back. So I'm not sure how much Stroman's going to pitch in these. So on paper, this looks ideal, but that the risky, and this is where, I like Tyler's points depending on league size. But if you're running, off air, we were talking about my, one of my draft and hold leagues where we have 7 teams separated by 3 wins. It's like you have to take a shot if you have the opportunity. If he's on your bench, put him in, take the chance, see what happens with that. But I'm a little pessimistic that he's going to qualify for wins in this based upon his first outing being 1 inning of relief.
Well, I think part of that was it was an extra inning game and they were running out of pitchers.
Okay.
And so
I didn't have that context.
Yeah. So I think they wanted to they were just looking for a guy to go throw. They had activated him off the IL and they're like, okay, we can, use this almost like a bullpen day.
Right.
That being said, I don't think he threw any minor league rehab assignments coming off of this. So, or if he did, it was like a simulated game or something, and I don't have that information. So, I do kind of share some concerns in terms of like, hey, how deep are they going to let him go into games? These are two premium matchups. You're talking about Pittsburgh, one of the worst offenses in baseball, and then the Rockies on the road after they just finished another home series against my Giants, who they're about to sweep somehow, which is just absolutely mind-blowingly frustrating. But as far as Stroman goes, like if you're in a deeper league and he's available, like I think you're gonna have a hard time finding a two-start this sweet to stream with on a guy who's usually pretty steady in terms of giving you the opportunity to win. And the Cubs have been a good team this year. So I think in a deeper league, I would do it. I think in your 10s and 12s, though, I think I'd probably go somewhere else because I think there is a lot of risk in terms of how deep he'll go into the game.
You're right about the fact that he did not do a rehab assignment. All of his stuff was done in the complex league thing. But they also, I'm looking at a particular article that said on 670 The Score, they reported the Cubs are considering bringing Stroman back as a reliever once he's ready to throw, and Stroman was open to the idea. So perhaps we'll see where this goes. I guess read up and see if anything's changed before you put in FAABs, or just go ahead. I mean, if you've got any FAAB dollars left, just put something in and see what happens. Keep it as an open option.
In my main event, I literally have $2, so I'm pretty much saving all of it for if there's an injury in the last week of the season.
I am out in labor. I spent my last dollar swapping trying to get something else, but I am out. So thankfully, Casas going down allowed me to bring up Bobby Dahlbeck because I lost Mickey Moniak, and along with Taylor Ward, along with Anthony Rizzo. It's like, no wonder my lead is evaporating. So I was able to call up somebody active, and it looks like Joe Adell may even come back. He's on a rehab assignment right now, so they may try to get Joe Adell back, and I'm still sitting on him too.
God, that Angels lineup looks a lot different than it did at the beginning of the season. All right, let's
Salt Lake Bees fans are like, hey, I know those guys because there's a bunch of them in that lineup now.
Next guy also has a 2-start. That is Jose Butto of the New York Mets is going to be going at Miami, at Philadelphia. Any interest there, Tyler?
Yeah, Butto, I was looking at his minor league stats. Seems like the Ks are there, 535 strikeouts and 541 innings, so about a K per inning. His ERA whip in the minors 3.86 and 1.25. So sort of like middle ground there, but he's someone that I think has the upside and is sort of a mystery box. That's someone with those matchups I'd be interested in streaming. Don't have like any shares of him, not someone I'm running to add, but I think in the right league context where I need an arm and he's out there, he's someone that I'd look at.
What about you, Jason?
I'm leaning the other way. These are tougher matchups on paper of late. Like maybe it's recency bias. I'm looking at Miami putting up an 11th spot on Atlanta yesterday, and I know it's a different Atlanta team now that they've clinched everything they need to really clinch. So I'm looking at it differently. But that Miami team, it can be hit and miss. I've seen it struggle to score runs, and I've seen it just break out the bats on everything. And then Philly, same type of situation. So these are tougher matchups for me. And so I would look for other options myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those things where it's like if you're in a deep enough league, like a 15-team mixed league, where like the options are pretty thin, you might take a gamble on this one. He does have a strikeout upside. The problem is he walks so many guys. He's walking like 6 per 9 in the majors this year. And that can be disastrous, especially against a team like Philadelphia that likes to walk and has a lot of power kind of up and down that lineup. That can be pretty scary. But I know I've got a number of leagues where there aren't a lot of options. And so Butto may be one of the guys that I look to turn to just to try to get a win if I'm win seeking.
If you're looking ahead, he's got Philly to find he's got a 1-start week next week, and it would be Philly again. So he's going to see the same thing twice.
That feels less enticing than it would normally. All right, let's talk about another 2-start guy, Drew Rom, who's been not great at the major league level, giving up home runs, giving up walks, but he does, again, have a 2-start week this week versus Milwaukee. And then versus the Padres. Milwaukee been one of the worst teams in baseball against left-handed pitching this year. Jason, any interest in Drew Rom?
That helps a little bit. And again, his last start would be against Cincinnati. If I put that, I mean, these aren't terrific on paper, but the lefty issue is one of the things that's helping out. And if you look at, I was looking at performance here in the month of September, and Milwaukee is 24th by runs created plus offensively this month. So that helps. So I have more interest in Rom than I do in Butto, just on the matchup situation, because these matchups we're talking about the 7th best team in September, the 24th best team in September, and then Cincinnati is sitting 19th. So these are rather favorable matchups if you just want to play straight matchups here.
There you go. Tyler, any interest in Rom for you?
Yeah, similar to Buddha, his minor numbers 3.71 ERA, WHIP 1.31. So nothing, that jumps out at you like, oh, your prospect, I got to get this guy on my roster for sure. Like Jason said, the matchups are relevant right here. I just have a hard time getting into him based on what he's done so far this year with those inflated ratios. But I do understand he's a guy that, he K'd at 532 guys for 150 innings in the minors. So I think if you're hunting for Ks in a roto spot or, in a head-to-head format where you really need to match an opponent's volume and you need a 2-start week from someone, and that's what's out there and there's not much else I could see maybe in that circumstance. But in general, he's someone that I'm avoiding. I was a little excited about him when he got, I think he got traded, right? And then got, immediately put into the rotation shortly thereafter. So he was someone that I was, looking into. But, more I'll wait and see for next year guy for me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. Sometimes I know, like, at this point in the season, we're often just looking for any 2-start guy to throw out there, but because we're trying to sneak 2 wins or at least 1. But often the good 1-start matchups are the better way to go. Rom's been a guy that's been homer prone, walk prone. And while I'm not afraid of the Milwaukee matchup at all, the San Diego matchup could be really, really scary. So I probably would pass on that. Let's talk about the last of the 2-start guys that we're going to bring up. That's John Means. Came back in his first outing, through 5 innings. It wasn't necessarily an amazing 5 innings in that regard, but he now has a 2-start week this week. He's going to get at Houston, which is a bad start, and then at Cleveland, which is a pretty good start. Tyler, where are you at on John Means?
Means is one of those guys that's been trustworthy over his career. I think he had, that 1 year where he went out there and threw a bunch of innings, 1.03 WHIP, 3.6.2 ERA. And I think he's a good pitcher. I really think Means is a good pitcher. I think he threw 79 pitches his first outings, and, he's on a good team. So he's someone that, for that second matchup, definitely I'm excited for, but I just don't know if he's stretched out that much where you really want to trust him in like a shallow league, like a 10-team league or something like that. But he's one of those trustworthy names on the lineup where at least I know who John Means is, I believe. And I think I'd be comfortable getting Means in there for that second start for sure. And if I needed volume, I could see myself going for the 2 starts. But I do think it's the end of the year. They're prepping up his arm to get stretched out for, their hopes and everything like that. So for fantasy purposes, he could sneak in a 5-inning game, 2 runs, limit walks, and, give you something you need. So yeah, someone I'm interested in.
What about you, Jason?
So to your point there, Tyler, the funny thing is they had a stat. They mentioned something the other day on the broadcast. The only pitcher on that entire staff who has any postseason experience in the rotation is Jack Flaherty, and he may not even make the team because Jack Flaherty has been complete ass since joining Baltimore. This was the other guy that I wanted to talk about being back versus being back. Means we all know that his bread and butter is the changeup. The changeup is a wonderful pitch. The changeup is also a field pitch. And when you're gone as long as Means has been gone, remember he got hurt in his first or second outing of last season. And so timeline wise, he fits well into the timeline that I've always proselytized, wait 18 months Anything before 18 months, I'm out. Don't even talk to me. He's just about there. But the problem is, what I don't like about these matchups is twofold. One, he's at Houston, so that leaves him susceptible to the Crawford boxes. And then he's got at Cleveland. And we're talking about a guy who just came off an outing where he had 1 strikeout. So right now he's in kind of pitch to contact mode against a team that's what they do well. They hit to contact. They don't hit for power, they hit to contact. I don't like either of these matchups this week. And I'm out on that. But next week he does have Boston, and it is in Baltimore. Boston will be playing out the stream at that point. They may be trying to play spoiler and do what Baltimore did to Boston back in 2011. Thank you very much, Robert Andino. I will always love you for what you did in that game. So that may be where things are. But I like Means more about next week than I do this week, because that could be one of those, 2-start week, let me try this guy out. And that could really be a ratio imploder on you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Jason. I think I would much rather if the starts were at home, especially if you've got to start at Houston. I think that one alone kind of takes him out of contention for me. I do like him for Boston next week. Like you said, it's going to be at home, team that can swing and miss. Who knows what kind of lineups are going to be rolling out there on that day anyway. So if you're looking to stash him for next week, I understand. Or if you're in a league with daily lineups, right? So where you can use him at the end of the week and avoid that Houston start, and then use him again next week. I think I would pick him up. Next guy on the list is not a 2-start guy. It is a 1-start guy. That's Sawyer Gipson-Long. And if you think I'm talking about a law firm, I'm not surprised, because this is not a guy I had any knowledge about prior to him coming up and making his MLB debut. But he has been fantastic in the major leagues. We're talking about 10 innings over 2 starts. And he has a 2.70 ERA, a 0.90 whip, and a 41% strikeout rate. Jason, Sawyer Gipson-Long gets the Oakland A's this week. Are you interested?
Well, he's on a roll because he just faced the Salt Lake Bees and got 11 strikeouts. That's the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim these days. So that's where he got 11 strikeouts. We were just making fun of that lineup, and then he goes out and takes advantage of the situation. We were talking off air, or maybe it was on air. I forget which bit, but which Oakland team shows up. Oakland almost swept Houston this week, so it's not like they're a pusher. They can still do some things. It's kind of weird. That said, this is about as best of a 1-start matchup that you could ask for. You just have to hope it leans the other direction. But I have a little bit of a tough time putting a lot of faith in the numbers, because that LA lineup is so bad right now. With everybody, we got Trout out, we got Ohtani out, we got Moustakas out, we got Moniak out. I mean, all of these guys are out. Neto is coming back, or Zach Neto, he's coming back, but they've lost so much in that lineup. It's just, they're clearly playing out the stream, and it's tough to watch. That said, I am certainly happy they're coming to Tampa Bay this week. So,
Tyler, where are you at on Gipson-Long? Is he a guy that you'd be targeting?
I think if I'm desperate for a start, I know, and I'm playing in some Yahoo leagues, and he's one of the top increased guys because people are seeing that 11 strikeout game against the Angels and then the matchup against Oakland. And like Jason said, I agree. Oakland has some, players in their lineup, Geloff, that can do some damage. And I think that it's hard really trusting a guy that's in the minors, 4.45 ERA. But he had 405 strikeouts in 338 innings in the minors. So I think there is some K per inning upside there, but I don't think, the win context on the Tigers is that great either. So he's someone I'm lukewarm on. I think if you're in a deeper setting and you're looking for someone to get Ks, he could rack up, 5-6 Ks in the game or something like that. But he's not someone that I'm running to the wire for in like a standard 12-team league.
I think it's a pretty good streaming opportunity. We're talking about an Oakland team that is the worst team in baseball, and I've been saying all season that Oakland is maybe the worst team ever constructed, and by design, obviously, right? You're getting that matchup in Oakland, which is a great place to pitch. Gipson-Long has been fantastic since coming up. I know both the matchups haven't been difficult, going up against the White Sox and then going up against the depleted Angels roster, but I mean, the matchup screams like, hey, this is a really good opportunity here. I think he would be at the top of my list if I was looking to stream, especially in 15-team leagues. But even in 10s and 12s, I think he's a guy that I'm targeting this week in a lot of leagues. All right. Moving right along, let's talk about Shane Bieber, who is projected to come back here. Any interest in Shane Bieber there, Tyler?
What's his matchup?
He's got Baltimore this week and St. Louis next week.
Yep.
Yeah. So I like Bieber as a pitcher. I think we all know it seems like he's taken a step back since his Cy Young candidacy and Cy Young years. He's someone that was taking pretty good draft capital before his injury, but I think a lot of people had a lot of fears going into it. And with him missing this amount of time, he's someone, I have above means in terms of like status as a pitcher for sure. Still, like, I think Bieber might be a good draft value next year with like a big dip that's going to come up if he's able to stay healthy. Down the stretch, he's someone that I would use, I think, in a 14-team league for sure. And even like a 12-team or 10-team league, just based off of, his pedigree. But I do think he's taken a big step back, and I've really sort of lowered him a tier or two in my assessment of Shane Bieber.
Jason?
I was trying to take a cardinal just landed up my bird feeder outside my window, and I was going to say that's a sign. Stay away from Bieber. Seriousness, these two matchups, these are two offenses that are in the top half of the league for offense in the month of September. So these are two above average offenses right now against a guy that I have been avoiding most of the season. These matchups don't want to make me change that situation. So I'm recommending folks avoid Bieber for these final two matchups. He did come back his last start, hit rehab start, struck out 4, was charged with 2 runs, 1 earned over 3 2/3 on Tuesday. So if he comes back, it looks like he'll be in the early part of this week, but I'm avoiding. Baltimore's just still too scary.
Yeah, and I just don't know what Shane Bieber we're going to get. And I mean, I've been a kind of a Shane Bieber hater for a long time, and it hasn't worked out well until this year. But so I'm not going to take a victory lap after taking a lot of losing seasons on betting against Shane Bieber. But I don't know how deep he's going to go in the game. I mean, Cleveland's obviously out of the playoff race at this point. Are they even going to really push it with him?
They're not eliminated.
I mean, aren't they though?
The sad part of it, they're not eliminated. That's the sad part. They're officially not eliminated, even though they are comfortably 3 games behind the wild card. But they are officially not eliminated yet.
They could be by the time we get to his start, which is projected to be on Thursday. So, I'm staying away from Shane Bieber, and I'm probably going to stay away from him next year as well. Like, I worry that he's going to need Tommy John at some point,
or he's going down the Corey Kluber path to retirement. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm probably staying away from Bieber short term and long term. Let's talk some hitters. Josh Jung, who was thought that he could be back earlier this week, now going potentially going to be back early next week. Any interest, Jason, in a Josh Jung?
I am putting him back in my TGFBI lineup as we speak. So that tells you my interest in that. I mean, the matchups, he's got a series against Boston, a series against Seattle at home, and then they finish the season at Anaheim and 4 at Seattle for the situation. So I need him back in the line. I've been starting plugging the utility hole however I can in that particular league. And the Texas offense truly hasn't been the same since Jung went down. I mean, they have been mostly a lot of miss. I mean, this was an offense that was out of control. And then it started struggling. They have been a sub 500 team since. Now that, Jonah Heim's been back, it certainly has helped. That guy's been driving things in. So now in the month of September, they have the 4th best offense by runs created behind Tampa Bay, the Dodgers, and the Barbs. So that's where things are right now with them. So that they're catching their stride again. Maybe that's because they also took Adolis Garcia out of their lineup by injury, because, man, he had not been the same player in the second half. So you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I'm excited to get Jung back in my lineup here down the stretch, because these are good matchups and the offense appears to be catching its stride again.
What about you, Ty? Are you interested in picking up Josh Jung?
Yeah, if he's out there and I need some offense, especially, third base, could be somewhat of a shallow position depending on who you have in your lineup. I think Jung is a real 4-cat guy that lineup, like Jason said, has been up and down, but we really saw what they did earlier in the year when they were really hitting stride, just putting up monster numbers where you could pretty much plug in a lot of those players, even like Leody Taveras, just anyone in that lineup. And now we've seen, Mitch Garver sort of hit his stride. So they have a lot of upside in that lineup still. And wow, Seager this year really just put it all together. But back to Jung, I saw him going top 100 in some second half redrafts that I was in. And I think in a third base position, he's someone that for next year, if you believe in him, you're thinking I can get, 25 home runs, 85 RBI, 85 runs, and just hope the batting average is serviceable. And it's been good this year. So, guys like that, when their batting average is that fourth cat is playing, are really attractive, and the hitter matchups look pretty good. So yeah, I'd be in on him if he was available. And if I needed that, positional ad.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite targets in draft season. He's going to be one of my favorite targets this week. I'm bummed that I had to drop him in a number of leagues where I drafted him because I just figured he was probably going to be out for the entire season, and I couldn't even hold him if I had known he was going to be back for the last 2 weeks of the season. So, but if he's available in your league, go out and get him because, this is a guy who's got a ton of power. It's a great lineup, and he was playing really, really well prior to going down. So definitely should be a huge target for you, Josh Jung of the Texas Rangers. Another third baseman that might be of interest in deeper leagues where, again, people are running out of options is Josh Donaldson. I thought he was done. I literally, when the Yankees released him, I was all like, oh, this is the end of Josh Donaldson. He's going to retire. Signs a minor league deal with the Brewers and has worked his way into that starting lineup. Tyler, any interest in Josh Donaldson?
I typically shy away from guys that have this type of BA floor. However, in a roto setting, I think if I'm looking for home runs, like I was talking to Jason before this, his home run per game upside his whole career has been there. He has that 30, 40 home run per 162 game stat profile in his history. I just think you're going to really be susceptible for some 1 for 12 series with strikeouts, 2 for 12 series or so. I'm not in any points leagues, but I know a lot of people are with, Ks and stuff like that. So he's someone that I typically avoid. But if I'm specifically needing home runs and I have some batting average to play with, he's someone that I think can be added for, hoping to add some home runs down the stretch.
What about you, Jason? Any interest in Donaldson?
I mean, the matchups are nice with 8 games against the Cardinals and the pitching staff, and he's got 3 at Miami, and then he's got also 3 against the Cubs. So the matchups are very favorable for his particular skill set. Launch. So as Tyler was saying, if you're looking for home runs, if home runs are tight, it's a counting category you can kind of stare at and look and be like, cool. I mean, with the final 2 weeks of the season, batting average is not going to move that much. So, take that risk unless you're in one of those where it's like you're down to the 1,000th decimal point and type of thing. But batting average is not going to move. You can stare at your counting categories, see where things are. And these matchups and ballparks are very favorable for Donaldson's particular skill set, which is elevate and celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, Donaldson's one of those guys. He's got power, and he's also, for those of you playing on base percentage leagues or get points for walks in a points league, he walks. He walks a ton. He's walking at a 24% clip since being activated by the Brewers. Also striking out at that same 24% clip during this time. So I think he's going to play every day. This is a Brewers lineup that doesn't have a lot of pop. I think they're going to give him a lot of opportunity to play as long as he's healthy. Of course, if there was a longer time left in the season for Josh Donaldson, he would likely not be healthy for most of it because that's kind of what he's been. But 2 weeks, hey man, I'm sure he can stay healthy for 2 more weeks before the playoffs. So deeper leagues, yes, if you're looking for power, looking for on base, he's a guy that I'd be targeting in FAAB this week. I know for a fact I will be targeting him in a couple leagues where home runs might be the difference between me winning a league or losing a league. So. Zach Neto has been activated from the IL. He was a guy that was starting to put things together, a really young prospect for the Angels. They got aggressive on. I think he's going to be their everyday shortstop kind of moving forward. Jason, any interest in Zach Neto?
Yeah, he's playing every day, and that's pretty much all I want at this point. He's going to have 12 games, 3 at Tampa Bay, 3 at Minnesota, 3 at home versus Texas, and then closing the season out in Oakland. So he should not only be playing every day, but hitting high in the lineup, so he could give you maybe another 50 at bats. Before here between. Yeah, that's right. 12 times. Yeah, roughly 50. Let's say he gets a 5th plate appearance. So, that's where he maybe 50 plate appearances rather than 50 at bats. But I've been impressed with what I've seen from Zach Neto this year. And so that's somebody I want to get in my lineup. Unfortunately, I did drop him in a couple of leagues because I didn't know when he was going to come back and I needed the bench spot. So I'm going to have to go back and pay for him again. I paid for him once already this season. I'm going to have to pay for him again tonight.
What about you, Tyler?
Neto really excites me. He blew through the minors, good batting average per game, good stolen base per game. And I think he's someone down the stretch in this sort of silly part of the season that could take off. I know, so far his batting average this year hasn't been as good, but I think that Angels lineup, someone's going to have to step up. And if he's getting regular bats down the stretch, I think he has the minor league profile and pedigree that if you're looking for an upside grab, he's someone in there. And I really always am attracted to adding players that in the batting average and steals cats are there. I play in some head-to-head, leagues still, weekly, daily moves, and his stat profile is, a bit more unique than your typical low batting average guys that home runs. He's probably going to be hitting in some decent lineup spots, getting some opportunities. So I like the player for sure.
Yeah, he's been hitting second in the 5 games since he's been back. He's hit second every time.
Yeah, if you need runs scored, like right now is the time to go get Zach Neto because he, like Jason mentioned, been in second in that lineup. I know it's not a good lineup right now. You have no Trout, no Ohtani. Maybe Trout makes it back before the end of the season. I know there was talk that he was trying to return before the end of the year, but any guy batting first or second in a lineup consistently is a guy worth picking up, especially if you're looking for runs right now. And like I said before, like Neto was a guy that was starting to turn things around after kind of a slow start to his major league career. This was an advanced hitter when they drafted him out of college. So I think Neto is a guy that, especially in your 15-team leagues, but even in some 12s, might be interesting as a guy who can help you with runs scored and maybe some batting average as well. All right. Moving on, we have Kris Bryant, who finally made his way back from the IL. He's going to be available in probably some shallower leagues. Tyler, any interest in Kris Bryant?
Yeah, any games that he's playing in Colorado, he's someone to look to stream in if he's available. Even guys like Montero are being added, and Kris Bryant has the replicated history, the ex-MVP. And he hasn't really had that takeoff yet in Colorado, with the injuries and things like that. But I think he could hit fire down the stretch because he has it in him. Although I do think he's regressed considerably at this point in his career. But I think he's a stable floor bat that can give you, decent 4-cat coverage. So yeah, Kris Bryant, someone, especially in the Colorado games, I think is someone that I would trust to add in there where I need his positions.
Yeah, and the Rockies are home all week this next week before finishing the season on the road all week. Jason, where are you at?
Backwards. I must have it backwards. Yeah,
you know what? You're right. You're right.
This week.
They're on the road all week, and then they're at home for the last.
Yeah, they're at San Diego and at Cubs, so nice homecoming there. Opportunity for Bryant. The Cubs part would certainly, let's call that like Coors Light this time. So it's like he's got 9 favorable ballpark conditions. So yeah, I'm interested. With Kris Bryant, the Padres series, meh, but the rest of the way, that's all fine and dandy for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy that you don't usually find guys like with his talent level on the wire, and I know he's been really disappointing to people who drafted him, but at this point, you throw all that out and you go, if I need some power right now, a guy who's going to play every day, and play a full week in Colorado to end the season. Yeah, Kris Bryant's the guy that's going to be near the top of my list. Now, if you are in like a head-to-head league that finishes out next week, you may not want to pick up Kris Bryant, right? So I know like the Super and the Bust head-to-head league, right? We're going to be doing our championship next week when they're not in Colorado. So he'd be a guy that I would pass on in that sense. But in the majority of leagues that play all the way out through the end of the season, then I would definitely be in on Kris Bryant. All right. Let's talk about Ceddane Rafaela, who is a top prospect for the Boston Red Sox. Those of you who listened in the preseason might remember Paul and I making fun of him because we had no idea who he was, but he is now up and ready to contribute. He is a high impact prospect for the Boston Red Sox. Jason, any interest in Rafaela?
If he keeps hitting leadoff, yes. I mean, you're looking for playing time, and when I was checking their checking their lineup, he is, when you look and see what's out of the Boston lineup, when I check Rafaela, he's out there playing every single day. He has hit leadoff. He didn't play Saturday, but he's played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the last 6 games, shortstop at one of them, and has hit leadoff in every one of those games. So, yes, I mean, I saw some of his game when they were playing Baltimore. The athleticism certainly is nice with that, the fact that he can play both of those spots. So, yes, I'm interested because, we already talked about how this lineup is trickling down and the fact, Trevor Story's hitting 7th with this situation. But, yeah, let me have Rafaela and his ability to move on the bases once he can get on base. But I love the fact that when he's in there, he's hitting 1.
Where are you at on Rafaela there, Tyler?
I'm excited about him. Similar to you guys, he's someone that I had to dig into earlier this year when I saw, his rise and everything, and his success has been there, and his, 45 at bats. He already has a steal, a couple dogs, and he stole 115 bases in the minors and just under 1,700 at bats with 60 home runs in that time span. So he's running at about a, 20, 30 pace in the minors. And, there's a reason he's a top prospect, and hitting leadoff in Fenway, sign me up.
Yeah, if you're looking for batting average, definitely look somewhere else because, I mean, while he's got a 333 batting average right now, his XBA is 220. He's striking out 36% of the time, but there is some power. I think a fair amount of power, maybe league average, something like that, but a ton of speed. And if he's going to be leading off in front of guys like Rafael Devers in that lineup, then you're going to want to add him on your team. There's going to be run scores, there's going to be stolen bases, maybe a few more home runs. Just don't look at that batting average and go, hey, like, oh, I'm going to get batting average too. You're not going to get batting average, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he drops down the lineup. But with only 2 weeks left in the season, Boston's not playing for anything. They may just let him just run out there, even if he starts to struggle at some point. So, Rafaela is a guy that I would definitely be targeting. Let's finish out with Heston Kjerstad, who got called up after the Mountcastle injury, and looks like he might be playing every day as well. Kjerstad, former 2nd overall pick in the 2020 draft. Where are you at in Kjerstad there, Tyler?
He hit over 300 in the minors and top 85 prospect, pretty much consensus, and he's in there. So he's in that range of has the pedigree, did it in the minors, came up, given the opportunity. So if I need the positional flexibility and have some space for a bat and need someone with good contact skills like that, I think he's interesting. And, Baltimore has a, strong offense at times. And like you said, with Mountcastle out, the opportunities there. So he's a fun one. He's a fun kind of, like I use the term silly season kind of ad to get in there. And, he's been a known pedigree guy too. So it's why not?
What about you, Jason? Any interest in Kjerstad?
No, that's not any fault of his. I mean, I agree with everything Tyler said to the pedigree. I mean, this was also a guy that was an extremely accomplished college hitter at Arkansas. In one of my home AL leagues, we're allowed to draft anybody in the reserves. But if that guy gets taken in the draft to an NL team, you lose him. So every year I'll spec on one college kid. And this was the kid I took in 2020 when he came out and landed with Baltimore. Sweet. I ended up trading him last year to try to win the league. And so he's on somebody else's team. Big power potential. Love it. But the problem I have right now is he's only started one game. And so he had a big home run in that one, but he's been up 4 games now with Mountcastle out, and he's only started one of them. He's not even in the lineup today. They're doing the whole Sunday catcher. So James McCann's in there, which means Rutschman's DHing, and Kjerstad is first base. So they're not going to bench O'Hearn with the way he's hit. That guy's still not real. that MFer's not real. That lady from the plane, the guy's been killing me all year. Kjerstad has been benched. He hasn't not been in the lineup, and this is a deep. And they have Aaron Hicks on the bench today as well, and he's productive. So they have a lot of depth on this situation, and I'm just concerned how that's playing out. The rest of their schedule, they've got 3 at Houston, 4 at Cleveland, 2 at Washington, and 4 at Boston. I would assume if they can say win today and then take advantage, maybe in the final week he may get more playing time. But right now I'm having a tough time seeing how he's going to get every day at bats. And in the leagues that I'm still competing in, and I'm assuming this is the same for everybody else, every at bat counts, and I need to put a guy out there that I can use in 6 games versus a guy who may play 6 games and only start half of them.
Yeah, I think I tend to lean towards Jason on this one. I just don't know where the playing time comes from.
Love the long term. Love the kid long term. Just in the immediate future, I'm seeing a problem where Mountcastle has not been IL'd, so it's a day-to-day situation. And then when Mountcastle does come back, if they're not pulling an Angels Ohtani Moniak, an Angels situation, because they try to have a guy play through a fractured fibula, right? With Rendell, when Mountcastle comes back, this looks even worse.
Yeah, the hard part with Baltimore, I'm really interested to see what they're going to do in the offseason. They just have so many bodies. And they're all good, useful bodies, but they can't be good and useful if they're all playing part-time. And I assume they're going to make some trades at some point and maybe move some of these young hitters for some either young pitching or established pitching. But that won't be more clear until next year. And so a guy like Heston Kjerstad, I just worry he's not going to play enough down the stretch. There is power in a DFS kind of situation or daily moves lineup.
Oh, yeah.
Deep benches, I totally get it. Hey, he's in the lineup today. I need a little bit of pop. I'll take a gamble on it, but I just worry that he's not going to have enough playing time down the stretch to really move the needle.
Yeah. With that playing time concern, coming up, definitely, I'd shift my answer. I mean, maybe in a daily spot where it's a Sunday and he's starting and you're having extra ad or something. But I agree.
All right. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Jason. Nice to meet you. And learned a lot about how you guys process, fantasy baseball is, amazing. And, I'm excited to join those NFBC leagues next year and, those 15-team 2-catcher leagues and, compete with a lot of guys that are, also writers in the industry and stuff. So it's been a great intro.
Nice. Well, We'll definitely need to make sure you get you in TGFBI next year. Why don't you remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then talk about everything you do?
Yeah. So I run a Twitter handle at BackpickFantasy. Look at a lot of standard league ads, sort of for major platforms, 12-team leagues, look at some drops and things like that, do a lot of 14-day stats, trying to hit fire at the right time. And then I'm on www.sportsethos.com. I write a bullpen call article every week looking at hot ads, for saves, holds, also ratios and K rates to add in there. And then on Sundays, I drop a hot ad article for Sports Ethos as well. And I'm, in the works of getting a Sunday podcast going too, with Sports Ethos. So next year is going to be really good. I only got into writing this season for a platform. So, the sky's the limit, and, really appreciate you having me on, Justin. It's, always nice getting face-to-face with some people from the industry and learning about all this.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure to get to talk to you again. I got to talk to you on Joe Rico's trade deadline podcast live stream, which was a lot of fun as well. So definitely go check out Tyler over there on Twitter and over there at Sports Ethos. Jason, where can people reach you at, and what are you working on?
You can find me on various platforms. If you go to linktree.com or there's a link in the podcast now. Let's go there.
Yeah.
If you go to Twitter, you'll see that my Twitter profile is closed, but there's the link to Linktree. So you can find me on Instagram. If you're interested in Blue Sky and want a code, reach out to me. Somebody did, Jason, nice to hear from you again. One of our listeners reached out to me and asked for a code, and he's in and participating over there. So I have, I think, one code left right now, but they come once a week. But all the other platforms, even wrote something at medium.com about outs on the bases. And then I'm starting the accountability series over at RotoWire, my Collette Calls column, looking at where I went right and where I went wrong on bold predictions. So starting with the the hitters right now, and then moving on to pitchers before we get into full offseason mode and start doing all that.
And you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB or any social media platform, Justin Mason FWFB. Writing daily at Fangraphs and 2 days a week right now over at Fantasy Pros. That is going to wrap us up for this episode. For Tyler, Jason, and myself, thank you for listening. A fantastic baseball season.
Good luck, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks.